What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 408 of Opinions May Vary. I am your host, JR. I'm my co-host with me, Alex.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
We are going to have a lot of fun today. Today we are joined by Brandon Leach of Motley Miscreations. He's an artist and toy designer with numerous eye-catching designs under his belt, including one that was a finalist in last year's Designer Toy Awards. Currently crowdfunding his latest design, the Kraken, and is on track to absolutely obliterate his goal with the hopes of it hitting collectors' shelves this December. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thanks, guys. It's nice being here.
We have, at least myself, Alex has more experience than me. He has the shelves full of the toys and the really neat stuff. Like when you show up at his house, you go, "Oh man, what is that?" I have a couple, but not a lot. I'm still a designer toy novice, if you will. But we did have the opportunity to bump into you at last year's 5 Points Fest, which was also that was the same show as the Designer Toy Awards, right?
Yeah, so it's like the Designer Toy Awards are like a little show, like later on in the evening of like the Saturday for 5 Points.
Right. So with a show like that, it's immediately overwhelming, especially to someone like me who, I've been to New York Comic Con, which has like this section for designer toys, like they have like the block and all that stuff. But I'm still kind of new to the game. So I guess I want to kick this off with, how'd you get into this? How did you decide, I want to make this, I want to travel the country and show my product. I want to get into this genre. Where'd you get your start with design and toys?
Oh man. I started making little robots at work, like during lunch hours. I was working on it was just a really busy work job that it was just an incredibly overwhelming amount of stuff to do. And at lunch hours, I would need this like little tiny creative outlet. And I was making little robots that I was like trying to make that you could just swap parts really easily. And I kind of like got really far down this rabbit hole of trying to do them, and I was like designing them and making them with my kids and like trying to do this weird obscure thing. And I got so far into it that I was like learning how to do resin casting and mold making and 3D printing, and really I wasn't even a 3D artist at that point. Like I was just kind of dabbling in it, and like it just got so deep into it. And eventually I realized, like through some difficult conversations with my wife, of like, hey, we're trying to make this toy for kids that is inherently expensive to make because we're hand making each one, and at the same time incredibly fragile. So like we're completely missing the market altogether. And so I was like, oh, well, that's dumb. But having like gone through making all of those things, like I was on Instagram and like looking at all these things and just thinking like, man, this is so cool. Man, this is so cool. And like finding all kinds of, designer toys and, more vinyl toys and sofubi and all that stuff. And like, it was just super intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so after I kind of like finally admitted to myself that the robot thing just wasn't ever going to work, I was like, I just want to make something that I'm going to be happy with. And I started doing that, and like the response was much better right away. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense then. But yeah, like I did like a toy that was it was like a little bunny dude with like a skull face, and it was kind of like a I think it's called a dunny that have the ears. I can never remember. But it was kind of like that. It was kind of like the Donnie Darko Frank Like it was just a lot of like weird things that I was trying to mash together and have fun with, and I enjoyed that a lot. And then after that, I did this character called King Creepy with this just like really, really big smile. And I doodled that up on a Post-it note during a meeting at work. I was like, this is too much fun. I'm just going to keep doing stuff like this. And luckily, like the response was pretty good right away when I started doing that kind of stuff. So I was like, all right, like I think I'm kind of onto something here, and I'm just going to keep chasing that down into the hole of what makes me happy. So yeah.
That's got to be a rough realization for a lot of people, whatever they're doing, to have invested so much time or so much money or materials, and when to know like, well, I should probably pull the plug on this if it's not working out. And I know for me, a lot of times it's like, what could I possibly salvage from this project, and what could I still try and maintain and be like, and try and just clutch onto something and hold on to it and be like, no, I still got something out of this. Either I learned how to make something, or maybe this will be of value someday.
Yeah, like I think that I don't think I rationally thought about it that much. It was like I just kept making these things and like thinking that if I improved it a little bit each time, like, all right, people are going to notice it now. And eventually it was just like, I'm kind of over it. I'm kind of done with it. And because I had all that stuff, it wasn't like a rational thought to be like, how can I make this better so that I didn't waste all this time and money and whatever you want to consider it. It was just like most of the things start as like a little Post-it note sketch or like a lunchtime doodle on something that like I just can't stop, and I just have to chase it. And so like it was like I made the sculpt and I was like, well, I have all the stuff to make it, so I might as well go ahead and do that. And like you make one, and I was like, all right, that was pretty cool. And then like you got another meeting on next Thursday, and I take the Post-it notes with me everywhere I go, and like another doodle comes out, and you're like, oh, okay, this might be fun. So it's kind of like the thing where like the Post-it notes, they're not worth even looking at. It's just the dumbest sketch, and I leave probably 75% of them like stuck to the table where I draw them. But every now and then I'll like just keep one with me, and so like it starts as a stupid, just ridiculous little sketch, and then like at lunchtime I would like start sculpting on it, and like if it was an idea that I thought was worth chasing, I would spend a lot of lunch hours on it. And if not, then I was like, all right, that is not working. So like it's a lot of things that start as nothing and stupid, and some of them you just can't stop chasing.
At my previous job, we they had like a maker fair, like a mini maker fair type thing. And part of that was they sent us a bunch of stuff to display and demo for people. And one of those things was a very, very entry-level 3D printer. And I was tasked with setting up this 3D printer and loading the demo on it so that, and I had to print a couple things that like they gave us a memory card and it had preloaded stuff on it. And it was like, print one of these and then you'll show it off later. And having no experience with 3D printing or any design or kind of technology like that, I was instantly overwhelmed. I was able to finally get it set up. I learned more about extruders and I don't even want to call it ink, but like it was a massive learning experience. And but in the end, it ended up working. It was fun. I actually 3D printed stuff. Of course, I didn't design it, but someone else did. But it was still fun. My long-winded question is getting into this, because you mentioned you weren't even a 3D artist at the time. Getting into this kind of thing, it seems like there is so much to learn. That like with the computer programs, the actual act of printing, the materials while printing, casting and resin and vinyl, and how how do you even kind of begin in this? I see. I hear you're already laughing, so I imagine it's a fun process.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where there's a lot of people that are into 3D printing that like really understand it, and they know like if you have this problem, this is how you fix it. And like you can devote all of your time and energy into trying to get really good at that. And I think the way my brain works is like I'm just going to do it and deal with the problems on the other side of it. Because like at the point I'm at, like I've been 3D printing for, probably 5 or 6 years now. And I still, like, if I run into problems, it's like, I don't know how to fix it. And I'm hesitant to try and get online to research how to do it because it's just that thing that there's a million hits on Google and you're like, maybe this is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is the thing.
Right.
And luckily, and this is going to sound terrible, but luckily, like, you can get 3D printers for so ridiculously cheap anymore that, like, more often than not, if I have a big problem, and luckily I don't have big problems like that, but you can just buy a new one instead of like spending, a month trying to like fine tune all the little problems and like get this perfect thing. Like I'm more likely to print it and try and clean up any of the problems with like sandpaper or like put clay on top of it and like resculpt parts of it. And that's kind of just the way I approach most things is like, just do it and you'll see the problems and then you can, redo it and try and, figure out, all those problems and come up with a solution on your own essentially. Like, because I feel like once you do it, you can see, all right, this didn't work because of this. And keep in mind, I'm not doing any of this like analytically where I take notes and like, I don't do anything like that. I just store it away in the back of my brain somewhere. But it's like, okay, this worked, this didn't. I think I'm going to do this to solve for this. And so it's like just a long-term process of like fine tuning lots of little things.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of YouTube videos. I bugged so many people on Instagram about resin casting and mold making. Like, you would be amazed at how many Google searches I tried to do to find the correct kind of clay to do like mold walls.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's absurd to think that there's, the right kind of clay and that there's people that have like a very specific preference, but it really is. And so, like, out of the 800 private messages I sent to people that I was like, this person looks like they know what they're doing. Like, luckily, a lot of people got back to me and were like, oh, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. And it's kind of cool because you form some pretty long-term friendships from that. Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, like, when I have somebody message me about that kind of stuff, mm-hmm. like, I try my best to try and just, all right, this is what I did. And, these were my results. Or I'll try to be honest with them. Like, I screwed this up, still haven't figured out how to do it. So if you figure it out, let me know also.
I saw some of this in action while doing my research, and I came across some of your Reddit posts, and it's loaded the vinyl group, the 3D printing group, and someone would ask a question, be like, well, this, you had a test print, and someone said, well, I think that looks kind of, I forgot the term, plump or lump.
Yeah.
And you were like, well, yeah, I know, but I plan on changing this up and doing that. And that was even, I think you said that was your second test or your second design, because the first one was like, just trying to balance it would be ridiculous. The way it was perched up, it was this leaping dog kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just like watching you have these interactions and trying to share this advice with other people. And a big thing that I run into sometimes when I do haunted house makeup is like taking good criticism. Someone's saying, Alex, use the wrong color on that. And I go, shut up. It's like, no, you just go, oh yeah, you're right. Purple would have been a better choice or something.
Yeah, like I think that when you're dealing with criticism when it comes from an artistic standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot easier to get your ego involved in that. Like I work in video games, and so I get critiques, every day. And it's just like when someone gives you critique, it's like it feels like they're telling you that you're just wrong. And like, I don't want to listen then. But when it's something about like, well, this didn't work because of this, and like your technique is just you're not understanding it. I feel like it's a little bit easier to accept that kind of stuff because it's a little bit more straightforward. Like it's not boiled down to like this is my vision as an artist. It's boiled down to like, hey, like this process would work better for that thing, and it would be more efficient to to use this kind of resin for that project.
I think it's also really easy to forget that sometimes when you admire someone's work or when you look up to someone, it can be really easy to forget that they might still be learning. Like they might not know everything there is about their craft. So like when you see, like, it's really neat to be able to see someone learning like real time, like this guy's work is amazing, and then seeing him at, I'm having trouble with this sculpt or something like that. Like I think it's fun to see, and also kind of refreshing for someone who maybe is trying to get into the business. I mean, look, we've been doing this show for 8 years now, and literally today in 2020 is the first time me and Alex are using Discord. We finally joined the rest of the world. We've been using Skype, and sometimes when we say like, oh, we usually meet on Skype, and people go, wow, Skype?
Still? Really?
Guess I'll have to reinstall that. And they've been more. By the way, thank you to everyone who's been so patient with us for using Skype. But even though we've been doing it for so long, we're obviously still learning. So yeah, I mean, it just shows that I don't even know where I'm going with this, but it's just nice to see, especially for someone maybe trying to get into it. Everyone's learning. There's always the shirts that nobody knows what they're doing. We're all just faking it. Like
Seriously.
Sometimes we get lucky.
That is the painful truth. Like it's all, I mean, there's definitely some people that know specifically what they're doing, but I think the majority of us are just throwing stuff against a wall and seeing what sticks.
It seems to have, oh, go ahead, Alex.
I don't know if there's a lot of like big name professionals who often post their mistakes or something they messed up. Like, I don't know if I could scroll James Groman's Instagram and be like, okay, so where's the King Kong or no, what was the name of it? I can't think of the name of.
It's King Corpse.
King Corpse. Thank you. Like where's the head or like the mouth that he didn't quite get right that he just wanted to throw out? Like, no, everything it is perfect, of course. So then when I want to try to do it,
probably resculpted that thing probably like 6 times, knowing just how obsessive you can get about things.
Yeah. Also,
it seems that. Oh, hey, Alex, go take it.
A King Corpse is like thousands of dollars too.
Oh yeah. No, there was one up on Facebook like a month ago.
Oh, yeah?
I've been having my eyes out for like trying to get one that I could paint because I've wanted to paint one for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But there was one that went up on Facebook like probably a month ago that was like a reasonable price. I don't want to say the actual number, but It was a reasonable price that I was like, I would buy that. And I noticed it went up like 15 minutes late, and I was already too late. I was like, no, I've been wanting to get one. So I was very sad about that.
It's fun.
Is that something?
Your turn. Go ahead.
No. I want to continue on this line. Go ahead.
It's funny. It's fun talking to other people who are into what you're into, and not knowing if you have this in common. Because it was last year, I believe. No, 2 years ago at 5 Points, and I was talking to this woman artist. I believe she goes by Pompladora Cat on Instagram, and she had some of her stuff. She draws Star Wars trading cards, and she had an Ashley Wood 3A figure of like a little box droid, and I was like, oh man, I've been dying for an Ashley Wood blind cowboy. And she goes, yeah, don't we all? Like, we know the blind cowboy hurt. That's some good pain right there.
Has anyone ever like come to you looking, I know that, and we're going to get to the Kickstarter in a minute. But one of the things that you've offered is the figures painted by other artists. Have you ever had other artists approach you and be like, hey man, I really dig your Belfry. I want it, could I get one to paint? Or like, have you ever seen people like trying to seek out your, like with the what was the King Kong called again? I'm an idiot.
King Corpse.
King Corpse.
Yeah. Like, people actively hunting that down to paint. Is that like the greatest compliment you can give to a designer toy artist?
So what I'm going to say might be a little bit controversial. You get it a lot. Like when you've made a figure, I think more so in vinyl. I've experienced it more with my vinyl stuff. Mm-hmm. But you get a lot of people messaging you like, hey, do you want to do a collaboration? And the dilemma with that is like, when I make a figure, like when it's a vinyl figure, you have thousands of dollars invested. Mm-hmm. And so like you have to try and recoup your costs.
Right.
And a lot of times, like when I reveal a toy for the very first time, like it's a significant number of messages where people are like, hey man, hey, I want to do a collaboration with you. Hey, like I want to paint some of those. Like, and it's like, had to tell people, and it's not a comfortable conversation. Like it's just, you're like, ooh, I hope they didn't take that wrong. But at the same time, like they're kind of going out on the branch to ask. So you have to be honest with them and be like, look, like I have to make my money back on these things so that I can make the next one.
Right.
And if I'm just constantly giving them away, and realistically the deal would be that, we split whatever it sells for. But a lot of times that kind of stuff doesn't sell. Like, and so like you have this problem where like you want to be buddy with everybody, but at the same time you can't just give stuff away. And I've been guilty of it like much earlier in my time as well, of like, hey, I want to paint one of those. But like there was a figure that I released like right after the new year, and I don't want to say the figure because it'll give some things away. But it was probably 10 messages like from separate artists like wanting to collaborate with me specifically on that figure. And I was like, guys, I haven't even got to paint one yet. Like, I'm not looking to send 5 out to each of you so that you can, paint it as well. And luckily, like everybody that I told that to was like super cool and understanding of it. But it's the kind of thing where it's like, I'm super happy that people are like inspired and want to paint them, because that's definitely a goal for when you do a toy. But at the same time, you're hoping that they're inspired enough to buy them as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the end goal.
Yeah.
Man,
I think it's we can get to the Kickstarter now, because currently there is an active Kickstarter. This isn't even your first foray. Back in, was it 2018 was your first one?
I think so.
That's what, at least it was. The expected delivery, the estimated delivery was in 2018. So I'm assuming the rest of the project was either 2017, 2018.
Yeah, it was 18 then.
For the Belfry line, which was successful, and then you ended up getting the nomination. You were a finalist in the Designer Toy Awards for that design, right?
Yes.
Now, I'm also super curious. What was that like?
That was really, really surprising, because like I just kind of view myself as this completely obscure artist that nobody has heard about, and every now and then somebody finds something of mine, they're like, cool, I'd buy that. And so when I got the email that like, and actually I didn't even see the email before somebody had messaged me on Instagram like congratulating me, and I was like, what are you congratulating me for? This is really weird. And then I like opened up my email. I was like, oh, that's awesome. So that was really cool to have that happen. I had never been involved with, like, I didn't even go to the show the previous year, the award show, because that was the first year we had gone to Five Points. And so my wife and I were using all the extra time to go sightseeing in New York. And so like that happening was like amazing. Obviously I hope I can win one someday. But just getting nominated was like, oh wow, like people have actually seen my work. I'm not operating in a bubble. Like this is crazy.
That was again for Belfry, which looking at the design, man, like knocked it out of the park, dude. Like I don't know a lot about designer toys, so like it takes a lot for me to like want to commit to one, because they can be pricey. They can be, intimidating. There's a whole lot of them, and it's like, oh, I just bought this one, but now I see this one.
Yeah.
But Belfry is rad, and now currently live on Kickstarter. Again, depending on when you're listening to this, right now it's late July. There's still 21 days to go. Once this is posted, there'll be about 20 left. But you're making the Kraken, which currently against a $6,000 goal, you're currently at over 20 grand, which, I mean, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Killing it, right out of the gate with that one. And the design is unbelievable and also apt because they just announced yesterday, I think, that Seattle's getting a hockey team called the Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, I had a buddy tell me, he's like, dude, you need to license those out to the team. I was like, I don't have any contacts there. Like that's probably not going to happen.
So about the Kickstarter, I mean, first off, were you expecting the success that you've been seeing in it so far?
No, I was like tinkering things like literally up until the minute it launched because I was like super nervous about everything and like showing it to people. Like I have like, a handful of like close artist bromances, I guess. I don't think there's any girls on there, so they're all bromances. But like, I'm constantly like bugging them and chatting with them about stuff. And like they're kind of trying to talk me off the ledge. And I was like, I just don't know, guys. I just don't know. Like, it's a terrible time to launch it, which it is. But I was just like, I got to do it. I have to do it. And when, like, I had a buddy tell me, he's like, dude, it's going to fund in 13 minutes. And I was like, you need to just go away with that kind of attitude because I don't need those kind of ideas in my head. And when it went live, like it funded in the first hour essentially.
Damn.
And it did not help my mentality at all. Like I felt like it like made me even more stressed. And so like it's eased up a little bit now because we're into it and like the number has kind of stabilized. But it's still like this like looming threat over my head. And it's like you want to keep pushing it because like, hey guys, I have this Kickstarter going and like the whole point of it is to try and get it in front of people's eyes. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know what else I should even like try to ask for because like it's already so far beyond what I was expecting. Mm-hmm. And anything past that is like, I don't know, like, am I just, shooting myself in the foot by giving myself all this work in a few months? Like that's going to be.
It's like, do you still want to hustle or do you just coast by now?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like I have ideas. Like I just actually posted in my Instagram stories, this like a little cute version of the Kraken mm-hmm. that I finished the sculpt on last night and I printed it up today. And like, I'm 95% sure that we're going to produce it as a keshi, which is like the little muscle figures. So they're like squishy. Mm-hmm. And like that's kind of like, the stretch goal at the moment where And to say it's a stretch goal is misleading because like usually that's like you announce it and like, hey guys, like if we can get to this number, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Like, but we're well past the number where I would have done that. So now it's just like, hey guys, we're going to do this, but like I need to get all my information lined up before I can give you all the information on it. Mm-hmm. And I have another idea in the works. If you go and actually look at my website, there's a painting that I did that is kind of like the second in the series of the Kraken. And that could give you an idea of what I'm tinkering with. The problem with it is like I have to like get everything nice and sorted as far as like design and all that stuff. And then I actually have to find time to sculpt it. But there's only, 20 days left in the Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. And it's like, how are you going to, get everything sorted out to where you could tease it properly?
Right.
And like try and entice people to be like, hey guys, we could do this also. Or do you just like stash the extra funding away to, be like, hey, like remember when we had that awesome hit? Well, we, continued on the series and now like this is coming out down the line as well. Mm-hmm. It's a tough thing to balance. I don't want to overpromise anything, and I don't want to underwhelm anybody with a rushed idea.
Uh-huh. I can imagine, launching and expecting like maybe it would be cool if I could produce 30 of these. And now it's at a point where like, oh, I'm going to need to make at least 120.
Yeah. So like when you talk to the factory about making them, mm-hmm. like, and I know that Japan is different, but I have not had the opportunity to work with the Japanese factory yet. Like they give you like a minimum number of like, this is like the least amount that we'll do. Mm-hmm. Otherwise it's just not worth our time. And when I talked to the guy that I've worked with before, he did my Sir Mortis figure that I was really, really happy with. He was like, how many do you want? And I was like, what's the lowest number I can get? Because I knew they were going to be expensive. And, like, obviously I had to keep the cost down as low as possible. And, I think it was like 100. And I was like, okay, I can work with 100. And I think now I'm going to have to go through and like count everything and be like, okay, am I going to have to increase this order? Because that's going to, it's getting close.
One thing that I very much appreciate with the project that you've put together. I mean, one, it's pretty easy to understand. At least personally, it's very easy to get overwhelmed with Kickstarters because sometimes people offer so much stuff and so many different packages and like, you can get, if at this level you get this, and this, but if you at this level you don't get this, but you do get that. But like it's sometimes it can be a little confusing. And I dig yours because it seems pretty straightforward. And also the main thing that I really like, and we've briefly mentioned it earlier, and it's even mentioned in the Kickstarter, that this isn't it's not a cheap hobby. It's not, it can be pricey to get into. The Kraken itself, if you want to get the Kraken, you're looking at $175, which is pretty much on par with what I've seen for figures of that size. Mm-hmm. Now, if you can't swing $175, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to get any sort of product, right? Because like sometimes it's like, oh, well, I can donate the $1 and say that I was a part of it, or that's it. But there's other options. There's a $75 option to get the diver, and then there's even a $20 option to get the 2-inch, like the little boy. So like for as little as $20, and like I swear to God, Brandon is not paying me right now. This is from the heart.
Checks in the mail.
We'll edit that part out. I very much appreciate the fact that there's options. Kind of there's like something for everyone. So it's like, damn, I can't swing $175 right now, but I really want to support this, and I can still get something. You know, it's like for $20, I can still walk out with a vinyl figure, which you don't see $20 figures too often, especially like in a Kickstarter. Usually it's like, at least from what I've seen, you see a lot of the big boy, and then that's about it.
You can get like a lot of much larger run vinyl stuff for in that price range, but like for the very short run type of stuff that we do, like it's pretty limited in finding
Right.
really affordable stuff. And I've always tried to keep my stuff lower priced, just because like my mentality is like, as much as I want to buy the crazy cool stuff like the King Corpse, like it's just not my reality. And so it's really difficult for me to chase those same price points. Like it's not me. And so I feel like asking people to pay that like also seems disingenuous. And I think I've found a happy medium for like the prices that I'm comfortable charging, and also like not losing money, obviously.
Right.
But also like, you know, slowly building a collector base and you know, having a happy place for, you know, what people are willing to pay versus what I feel comfortable charging.
I also appreciate it's straight up just your figures. It's your figures. The extra paints are thrown in, and but there's no need for it's a Kraken shot glass or coasters or or a T-shirt. I mean, never mind. I probably take a T-shirt, but you're not just throwing in like extra like coffee mugs, and that's just going to clutter up the package. It's like, I just want the thing, the really cool thing. Just give me that.
Yeah, so that was a very conscious decision that I made on this one, because like I did the Belfry figure, and I had that like that, you know, the cheapest thing that you could get was, you know, like the stickers, and I can't remember what all was in that package, but like people just weren't interested in it. And so it's the kind of thing that I enjoy making, and the costs aren't incredible to add. Like they're definitely costs, but they're not like you got to sit there and think on it for an afternoon whether or not you're going to do it. And so like I just resigned myself to like, hey, like, you know, you're going to get something extra, whether it's like a sticker with the diver or, you know, a print with the full figure, whatever it is. Like I don't want to like specifically try and push that as a pledge level, because nobody's interested in it more often than not. And like it feels kind of like come on guys, just give me some money. Like it's like, no, like I'm gonna make this stuff because like it's kind of, you know, what we all do. But it feels better as like hey, thanks for supporting us, you know, here's some cool stuff that you can also like get in your package, versus, you know, now all this added value to it.
So the figure is based off of a painting that you did. I want to talk about that for a quick second, and only because I've been to 5 Points for the past 2 years. We went with our friend John 2 years ago, and then I brought Jer and Brett with us last year. And at one point, I was just walking down the aisle. We had kind of split up and regrouped a couple of times, and I'm catching up to my friends. Brett's like hanging out at this table, like waiting for me to catch up and get there. And I finally get to this table, and Brett's like pointing at this print, this picture. Like, and he's really excited for me to see it, like really psyched. And I look at it and I go, yeah, I bought that last year. And he's like, oh, like he was kind of disappointed. He's like, I'm going to show out this really cool thing. And I'm like, I know it was cool a year ago, dude. And I'm like, and when I bought that, there was a really good deal. I bought a second print that had like and I was trying to think, it was an open plane with giant robots with moss growing on them. And you knew, you flip through to it and like, it's right here. You pull that out in a second. And JR's quote was, "Yup, that's on brand for Alex." So, with the original painting, was this? Because I can't always tell. Was this a physical painting? Was this a computer illustration?
It's digital. It's digital.
When did you first come out do that or make that?
I think it's probably 5 or 6 years old now. I was doing Comic-Cons as a 2D artist and like just trying to figure it all out. And, you know, it's another one of those things where it's like you get, you know, start digging down into the rabbit hole and you keep chasing these ideas that you're not really sure are working. And like I would do fan art of like, you know, Poison Ivy or something like that. And it was just like, it felt really disingenuous and I wasn't really enjoying doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to a Comic-Con, 800 other people have the exact same thing. And I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I want to get my work out there. I want to make art and have people enjoy it, but I don't want them to like my version of Batman. Like, I don't care about that. I don't know why I'm chasing it. And so I had this idea that like I was just going to paint like creatures from like myths or legends or, you know, mythology, like any of that kind of stuff. Like that was what I enjoyed doing. And like, that was what I had fun with. And so my wife was like, oh, like how cool would it be to do a Kraken? Like you should do that. And I was like, that's a really good idea. So I sat down and I started drawing it and it came together pretty easily. Like I painted it and usually for me, like I'll paint something and then I'll paint over it and then I'll paint over it and then I'll paint over it. And like the fourth iteration is like, all right, I'm done. But it came together pretty quickly, pretty easily. And from the first time we had it at a show, people were like, I love that. That's super cool. And almost at every show we do where we sell prints, it's our top selling print. Like it's pretty overwhelmingly in favor of that one. And the other funny little piece of information on that is that like for whatever reason, like people would start to tell us where they were going to put it. And we started keeping this like tally.
Nice.
And it's like 70% of the people that buy this print put it in their bathroom.
Yeah.
We're
yeah.
like, oh, I guess we make bathroom art. That's fine.
As soon as you said that, I was like, it's going to the bathroom. It's
yeah. So for whatever reason, like a lot of people have octopus bathrooms.
It's a water theme.
And they needed that for their decoration. And I'm okay with that.
We had mentioned it before, but that it's currently live on Kickstarter. If you're listening to this within the next 3 weeks or so, you still have an opportunity. You know, possibly in the future. Who know? Do you know if there's gonna be like? Do you plan on selling this like at shows or anything like that in the future, or is that a get on it in the Kickstarter and that's your only chance?
So I have like a personal philosophy for selling blanks, which is like the unpainted figures.
Right.
Where I will sell them at shows. Like I will bring some with me to a show of any figure that I have a blank of.
Mm-hmm.
I have very limited windows of availability for blanks online. So like, however many sales I have a year, not a sale, but like a release. Every now and then I'll have blanks, but the available number and the window of time that they're available is very limited. And I don't think Belfry as a blank outside of the glow in the dark ones was ever available on my website. It's like the painted ones go up for sale when I do runs of those or when I do customs or something like that. But like the unpainted stuff, like it's kind of like my stockpile to paint, and it'll go with me to shows.
Right.
The same thing will be the case with the Kraken. Like, if there's a special something that comes out, or maybe there'll be, after the Kickstarter, like a very small window of time where you can get one. Mm-hmm. Or if eventually if I do marbled ones, which I'm very hopeful I can do in the future, the factory I'm working with right now has said that, yes, they can do them. I know that they're capable of doing them because they did the crazy marbled mortise that I have. But the person that does them has not been able to come to the factory because of the pandemic, and they're not sure when they're going to be able to come back. So I'm guessing they must be immunocompromised in some way, or just old. And communication is always a little bit you're not really sure what they said, but I think at some point October was mentioned for maybe we can do marbles then. But chasing that up has not been lucrative yet. And I'm hoping it won't be for the Kickstarter, but I'm hoping in the future that we'll be able to have marbled versions, because marbled vinyl is freaking awesome. But if I do something like that, that would become available on the website, unless it was specific for a show. If I was, got a small special run just for decon or something, then if there was leftovers, they would go up on the website. But really, if you want a blank, the time to get it for sure, if you want to get one, is the Kickstarter. Or find me at a show. I do a handful of shows a year. And other than that, most of the stuff that I offer is painted stuff or small run resin stuff.
So essentially, best shot at getting it is back the Kickstarter if you wanna snag one. Now you had mentioned, which was also going to be my next question, was kind of being a toy designer in a COVID world, in a pandemic world, where obviously there are no shows. 5 Points was one of the first shows that we were planning on going to that got the axe. That one was canceled pretty early on in all this, which kind of was also it made it a lot, it hit hard. It's oh, okay, this is real. Shows are officially getting canceled.
Yeah.
And this, I think 5 Points was canceled in mid-March. So that was still 2 months out of the time. So anyways, what I'm getting at is, how have you hit any speed bumps with the production of the toys? How has been being a toy designer been with this whole pandemic going on?
So there, as far as speed bumps go, there hasn't been anything. Luckily, I don't have to send him a physical product. I send him the files. He'll send me pictures of the print, and then I'll approve it from there. And then he'll send me pictures of the wax, and I'll approve it from there. Right. Which obviously they've already created. From there, I think it's a month process to electroplate. I could be totally wrong, but I'm pretty sure someone told me that from wax to electroplating, it's a month. And that's if they're moving on your stuff. So I don't know when the molds will be done. But once the molds are done, vinyl can start kicking out right after that. Don't quote me on a date for that, because obviously I don't know. I'm not in charge of their production pipeline.
Right.
But as far as speed bumps go with shows in general in the toy world, it's tricky, because we had a show in Seattle. We were supposed to have the show in March. It was supposed to Emerald City Comic Con.
Yep.
Right.
And that's one we go to that we sell a lot of prints, and we also make toy stuff. The toy stuff at any Comic Con, people just aren't as interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of okay with that. We go and we show it off, and people are whoa, what is this? And those people slowly filter into your Instagram, and it's pretty amazing how often you can convert them the next year at the show. Because like, oh, that was really cool. I haven't seen anything like that until the next time I saw you. Oh man, I was thinking about that all year. I'm gonna get one now.
Playing the long game.
Yeah. But that show is like our best show every year, and so it was really mentally difficult, like when that got canceled. Like it was already really tricky because it was Seattle, and Seattle was like the very first place that kicked off with like the massive numbers of infections and deaths and all that stuff. And so we were already sitting on the sidelines going like, are we gonna go? Like we have so much time and energy and money invested into making this thing work that if the show goes on, like, can we afford to not go?
Mm-hmm.
And when they finally canceled it, it was like, oh, thank God, like we don't have to make that decision now. Like they've taken it out of our hands to where we might have made a stupid decision just because, like, guys, we've spent the last 3 months after work every night trying to get ready for this show. And luckily, like, people have been wildly supportive of the online sales. Like I had one for the Emerald City, and we didn't do the numbers that we would typically do at Emerald City, but we got close, which is really impressive. And that was really only off of toy sales. Like we sold prints, but we've never sold prints online before. But like 5 Points, I did a small release for that, and those like sold really well. But the tricky part of it is like, at least for me, I kind of use those shows as like your inspiration to make stuff. Like if you don't have that goal off in the distance, like you're not as motivated to get out on the workshop every night and like, oh, I gotta paint this, I gotta make these, like this is my internal to-do list every night. And without having something on the horizon, because personally, you can put me on record as saying I don't think DesignerCon's happening this year. I don't know how it would.
When is that supposed to be?
November. And so like the difficult part of that is like everybody that comes in from overseas for that show, that's a big portion of the dollars that come into the show. And I don't think any of those people would come in or can come in and still be able to go back home without having any issues. So it's tricky, but like you just have to try and have some kind of like internal motivation to make things. And obviously the Kickstarter, once that wraps up, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, we have so much stuff to get done and so much stuff to fulfill that's going to kind of fill the gap for that.
Right.
And then after that, it's probably find another thing to artificially get yourself stressed out for.
I'm glad you had touched on it earlier. It's like you were perfectly like seamlessly going through my notes with the last couple questions that I had. Because one thing I wanted to touch on was, with the amount of talent in this industry, and you would like to keeping motivated, and the way I would look at it, me being just completely self-deprecating, is like, is there like a feeling of imposter syndrome? Like, I don't, getting nominated, like I don't deserve to be in the same room as these guys, like the stuff that they make. And does that ever hit you, or is it, no, man, my stuff is great. Like look at the success that I'm having. Look at my product is fantastic. Is that all just motivation for you?
No, like if my wife were in here listening to this, she would be laughing at the question because she knows like I'm like just a neurotic mess when it comes to the idea of like people liking my work. And I don't feel like I'm that way about anything else except for my art.
Right.
And so like you just growing up as an artist and like, going to art school and like investing as much time as you do to get the skills necessary, it's impossible to not invest so much of your self-worth into the idea that this is what I make. Please tell me it's good, essentially. And so it's really difficult to like put yourself out there and like, hey guys, do you like this? Hey guys, do you like this now? Oh, okay, like maybe not that one.
But do you like it in green?
Yeah, exactly. Like I've told a bunch of people lately, I'm like, man, people must really like sea monsters, and like they've been like, no, I think they just like your work, and I'm like, that's not possible. Like it's obviously the sea monsters.
Don't be ridiculous.
But it's tricky because like you want to be as honest with yourself as possible and admit that like I have, a firm understanding of these, fundamentals, and like you want to have a rational idea of where you are as an artist, but at the same time it's really difficult to be rational about like how people respond to your work. Like I started as a 2D artist, as an illustrator, and to this day if I sit down to make a painting, which I should just be able to do without any problems, I get stuck like immediately because it's just like it's never good enough. Like why can't I do this? Like I don't know how to draw anymore. And it's an absurd thing that like you just get stuck in your head. And if you could just turn that off, you'd be like immediately 100 times better.
As we get toward the end of our show, we typically like to leave plenty of time for plugging and making sure that people are able to find where to find your stuff if they want to go looking. Alex introduced me to your work through Instagram. Where, aside from the Instagram, or if Instagram is the main thing, where can people go if they're looking for Motley Miscreations? Where can they go to seek you out?
Yeah, it's mostly Instagram. Like, I'm terrible at social media, and that's the one thing that I've been able to like stick with and follow through. I have a website, motleymiscreations.com, but the vast majority of what that used for is for releases of toy stuff. I mean, I have some of my paintings on there. I have some of my sculpting stuff that you can browse through if you'd like. But yeah, it's mostly Instagram.
That is Instagram.com/Motley Miscreations. That's all one word, Motley Miscreations. You can go and give that a follow. There's it's vinyl everywhere, vinyl and resin and figures, and it's just rad stuff, man.
I'm glad you looked that up because I would not have been able to tell you if there was a underscore or a dash or anything.
In my research, I found that you had some stuff up on Tramped, which is the second website I've found of this variety, where it's a place people can, it's never actually worked for me. I think there's like a final step or two that they haven't quite completed, but like I have a bunch of Eric Scarecrow pieces, and I've got a couple Dr. A pieces, and I can go on here, and it has almost all the vinyl figures that exist. And you can mark down what you have, you can mark down what you want, you can mark down what you need or what you're willing to buy or sell. And at no point has any of it ever worked where like I've either made a purchase or a trade or a sale. And it's not the first one of these, but you've got a couple Belfries, and I think you've painted one. A Golden Boy Go-Go.
I love the idea of Tramped, but
yeah.
I think it's probably just one of those projects that are just so big to try and keep up with that it's constantly stalled in production.
Like if
but I didn't put any of that stuff up there. That must be other people that found it and put it up there.
So it's like a collector database.
Yeah.
for vinyl.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
They need to make a VR version of that. How cool would that be?
Oh, with like 2
Might help
scale
with sales.
sizes of everything.
That'd be really cool.
Because we can actually like, you know, pick it up and see it. Like
Yeah.
sometimes that's a sale right there. Like, okay, yeah, I need this.
Yeah, but if you could just give something like a digital watermark so that there was only one of a thing,
Mm.
and
Right.
you just like had it in your virtual collection,
Ooh.
that'd be really cool.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Like if I could find a database for every comic book, how come I can't get one for figures? Was my complaint. And at some point
Well,
I
I mean-
found it.
The difference there, though, is like you're seeing all like the Marvel and DC stuff and the
Mhm.
Dark Horse,
Yeah.
but like you're not seeing any of the fan published zines,
Right.
Or like the really local stuff, which is, you know, the section of the scene that I exist in comparatively.
Right, compared to like pop figures and
Yeah.
and the rest of Funko and
Gunnies and
yeah.
When you're producing stuff in vinyl 100 at a time, like that stuff is short run.
And even 100 in some lines can be a pretty big run. Like Alex has a couple figures that are like one of 6.
Yep.
You know, like it's
I mean, like the 100 of the Kraken is like, you know, however many colors I get, it will be broken up through 100.
okay, gotcha. Right.
And then if I do like the painted versions, like, you know, if there's a run of 5, it'll be, you know, 1 of 5,
Mhm.
Gotcha.
etc.
Hmm.
All right, the Kraken again. If you go to Kickstarter, search for the Kraken soft vinyl toy. That should pull up Brandon's work. Again, you have about 3 weeks to go, depending on when you're listening to this. If you're listening to it right away, you still got plenty of time. But if you delayed, you know, time might be running out to pick up your copy of this wonderful creature. Or even just pick up a Diver Boy. You know, there's like we said before, there's something for everyone, and still plenty of time left.
Can't get no t-shirts.
No t-shirts yet. You know, who knows? But there's still plenty of time to get the actual figure, expand your collection, or get your collection started. It's such a rad like genre culture. It's just I can't wait to go to like the next show. You know, I mean, just show in general. I'm very much ready for the world to open up once we're all done being sick. But, Brandon, congratulations on the Kickstarter. I know it's not done yet, so I don't want to count too many chickens before they hatch. But right now you're sitting pretty at, you know, just over 20 grand. So, yeah, we're gonna knock on wood and cross our fingers that stays up there. And thank you so much for coming on, man. This was a great time.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to see you sometime in the future at 5 Points or something like that. But
It's got to happen next year, right?
right, yeah, like
Hopefully.
let's
I shouldn't
cross our
say
fingers.
that. Now we really have to knock on wood.
Wear your masks, people. But again, congratulations, and thanks again for coming on. Hope you're able to stay healthy. I hope you know, best of luck with production and getting this into people's hands. I know a lot of people are going to be eagerly awaiting it. It looks like it's a rad piece, man. But yeah, man, thanks again for coming on. Check out Motley Miscreations on Instagram. And once shows start happening again, you know, keep your eyes out at a show near you. You never know who might show up. Might be Brandon. But yeah, this is my really long way of saying thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. That is going to do it for this week. Again, Motley Miscreations. Go check it out. Kickstarter, Instagram, all that good stuff. So until next time, I have been JR.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Brandon.
And this has been episode 408 of Opinions May Vary.
Okay, so in pre-show, JR had to usher his pets out of his recording space, and I was left to have some chit-chat and banter with Brandon. When JR came back, he had the same banter to ask the same questions, and that led to a nifty little conversation that we kind of liked, and we liked the exchange, and we didn't want to leave it out, so I couldn't find a better space to put it into the episode. So here it is.
I don't have too much. Now you're out in, is it Oregon?
Yes.
Did I get that? Nailed it. Okay. So coming to 5 Points was a trek for you.
I just did this while you were...
Are you serious? You're lying.
Literally.
We were talking about how traveling for a show like brings its own little wonderful miseries.
Especially when you're, for all I know, Alex already said this, but like when you're carrying fragile product.
Yes.
That sounds nerve-wracking.
Having friends that do...
my wife made this like whole setup for like a hard shell suitcase. Where it's like foam core board, like in all these different compartments. And so we would like load things in like really delicately wrapped in bubble wrap and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get there and like you're just hoping that 85% of it survives.
Oof.
Damn. Is there like an acceptable losses? Like, okay, if 15% of the product gets destroyed, we should be okay.
I don't try to think about it too like logistically like that.
Right.
I think you just get there and like you have pieces that you're really proud of and you really hope that they make it, because like a lot of times at a show like that, you're showing stuff off ahead of time, trying to get people excited about it. And so people are messaging you like, oh, hey, I want to try and get that. I want to try and get that. It's like you have a decent idea of what might sell quickly. Mm-hmm. And if one of those things breaks in transit, it's a bad, bad day.
Right.
Okay, before we get too more through, we should put this in the show.
Yeah. Hey everyone, if you like that episode, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Opinions May Vary, and on Twitter and YouTube at OMV Podcast. You can also find us on Spotify or on our very own website at omvpodcast.com. And if you're looking for merch, we have stickers and pins available over at omvpodcast.bigcartel.com while supplies last. As always, thank you so much for listening. Let us know what you thought in the comments, and we will see you next time.